Just for you, the listeners of Podcast Fandom, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial. Just go to audibletrial.com/podcastfandom. There are over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. That's audibletrial.com/podcastfandom for your free audiobook download. Hey guys, welcome to Podcast Fandom, the official podcast for ProjectFandom.com. I'm your host, Nina.
I am Megan.
And I am John.
And we are back to discuss Game of Thrones Season 4, Episode 5, First of His Name. So before we jump into our thoughts on the episode and the scene-by-scene recap and all the feedback that we got and the spoiler section, I'm going to take care of two quick things. First, I want to remind everyone that I have read the books. John and Megan have not. I will not discuss book spoilers that would possibly, spoil the TV show for you. I will point out differences from the show and the books. And at the end of the show, I will discuss specific spoilery stuff after the outro music. So if you're not a book reader and you don't want to be spoiled, when you hear the music at the end of the show, make sure you turn off the podcast. If you want to send in spoiler feedback because you've read the books and you want to discuss that with me, send it to Nina at projectfandom.com. That's Nina at projectfandom.com. And I will read your emails in the spoiler section. The second thing
Megan and I will be book readers soon. We're teaching each other how to read.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a slow process, you guys. That's like Davos. It's really hard.
Yeah,
Josh keeps saying nigget, and I just can't get over it.
Yeah, Megan is still reading, moving her lips when she reads. It's sad. I wasn't going to say anything.
We need to have Nina write our important notes.
Yes.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I listened to the Unspoiled podcast for this episode, and first of all, if you've not read the books, you don't want to listen to their podcast because their whole format, it began with covering the books, and Natasha has read the books, Brendan had not at the time, and so they discuss every chapter with her being spoiled and him being unspoiled, and now that they're covering the TV show, they've finished reading all the books, and when they cover the TV show, they discuss it obviously from the point of view of two people who have read the book. So I just want to toss that out there. But if you've read the books, it is a great show to listen to. They actually charge $1 per episode because they put out free episodes of other stuff like Breaking Bad, Natasha covers Scandal, and The Walking Dead. And podcasting is expensive. So for certain content, they will charge $1 per episode, and their coverage of the TV show is one of those ones that cost, but it's, in my opinion, totally worth it, especially if you've read the books, because they're super insightful and they're funny and the discussions are really awesome. So that aside, though, I was listening to, actually their show is called Gilded Eagle, when they charge for it, and they talked about last night's episode. I listened to it earlier today, and there was one thing in particular that they brought up, particularly Natasha brought it up, and because I don't know if she was specifically talking about our podcast, but I know that what she was referring to, we did do, so I just kind of want to address it because I think it's important. But she did say how she was listening to other podcasts and people were joking about Marjorie's seduction of Tommen and making jokes about, the fact that he probably popped a boner under the blanket and all of that, and how it was, some people won't call that creepy, but will say Littlefinger's actions toward Sansa are creepy and inappropriate, but we're joking about what Marjorie did, and it's just as bad.
Right.
So I wanted to address that because, like I said, she didn't say specifically, but I know she listens to our show, and I know that we joked about it. And me, particular, I said he popped a baby boner. So there's a couple of things I want to say to that, just in case other people out there feel the same way. Plus, I think it's an interesting discussion to have. First of all, they're jokes. We joke on podcasts. I am 39 years old. I have a potty mouth. I'm a grown-ass woman. Sometimes my jokes are going to be inappropriate. So I am so sorry if that offends you, but they are jokes. But besides that, I guess as a parent, particularly I have a son and a daughter. My daughter's 15 years old. I have to say that that bothered me, and I felt the need to basically just say, like, I am not joking about child molestation or rape, and I have been very vocal, in my personal life when I'm having conversation with my friends. I totally recognize that in this society, not the land of make-believe, but our actual society right now, that men who prey on young girls, like if you hear a news story about a teacher at a school having an inappropriate relationship with a female student, he will probably go to jail for the rest of his life. But we hear also stories of female teachers having sexual relationships with teenage boys in their classrooms, and they don't get the same punishment. And I don't think it's right. I think it's just as bad. And I realize that that's messed up. But I think in terms of this show, the difference for me and what Littlefinger is doing with Sansa and what Marjorie was doing with Tommen last week is, one, I don't think, and I maintain this, and I know that a lot of people don't agree with me, but I don't think Marjorie went to his room with the intention of having sex with that little boy. And I know Natasha totally believes that. And she believes that once she sat on the bed and she started talking to him, she realized that's not the type of seduction she needed to do. So she played up the whole, oh, let's be friends and let's have a secret. I maintain that Marjorie is smarter than that, and that she wasn't going there to have sex with him. I truly believe that she went there to befriend him and to begin grooming him for turning him against his mother and making it harder for Cersei to turn him against her. So I don't, and yeah, I totally agree that the fact that she's an attractive woman and he's a teenage boy who's clearly, at that age is, probably afraid of girls and, having those hormones raging. I do
and
think,
she's using what she's got.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I totally will give you that she knew good and damn well that the fact that she was sitting there looking as she does was working in her favor. But I don't think that she went there to molest him or rape him, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's like me. I feel like I'm an attractive woman, and I know good and damn well when I'm out in public and I'm working it and I'm getting special treatment because of the way I look. And I've been to bars and I've flirted with bartenders and know good and damn well I get extra strong drinks because of the way I look, or free
Me
things.
too.
So listen, I am not saying that I'm not aware, or that she wasn't aware that that's what was going on and that is something that women do. But I don't think so. That's why I felt comfortable joking about it. Whereas Littlefinger, when you look at his interactions with Sansa, God bless her, she's so naive. I don't think. Now, I'm not saying I don't think Littlefinger. I definitely think Littlefinger wants to have sex with Sansa. I don't know that I would think that he would rape her to have sex with her, but I definitely think he is trying to seduce her and put her in a position where she feels like it's okay to have sex with him. But when I'm watching their scenes, I just think he gives off a creeper. You can't trust him. He gave off the same vibe when he was talking to Ned Stark. Do you know what I mean? He's just slimy. And
that's sort of why I felt like I didn't think he wanted. I mean, I don't know how it plays out in the books. I don't want to know, but I feel like I just think he uses his charms to his advantage with everybody. And I think it never occurred to me that he wanted to throw Sansa down and like get it on right then and there. So I just think he's a creep. Period. Across the board. So
I think he's definitely creepy with everyone, and I think that I consider the scene with Marjorie and Tommen to be creepy too. But with like what you said when we talked about that episode, I think that wasn't sexual. It didn't feel sexual at all to me, and so I think that's the difference. Is that with Littlefinger and with Sansa, like everything between them feels a little sexual. Like, and it's because a lot of the things with him, like with him and everyone, feels a little sexual and a little creepy. So I mean, I think that's that's the difference for me.
I think also, with Littlefinger, I think that you might feel a little bit sexuality there just because you know how he felt about Kat, and maybe there's like some projection onto her, her beautiful daughter.
Right.
And from this past episode, he's got some issues with that family. I'm not even sure I want to dive into. I do not want to dive anymore into the Tully Pond. Like, but anyway, that aside, like I sort of thought, like, like maybe he's talking to her like he would Kat, like in his own head, whatever.
Yeah.
But I see exactly what you're saying, and I can see why people can see it both ways.
Yeah, I'm not trying to So basically, the short of it is, I don't feel like me saying, "Oh, he popped a baby boner," was me saying, "Oh, it's okay for her to be doing that," and that because one, they're jokes and it's a podcast and it's an adult podcast and we're going to joke like that from time to time. But two, seriously, I totally disagree. I do not think that woman walked in that room with the intention of having sex with that boy. I do think that she wants to marry him, and I think in this make-believe society that they've already established that they are totally okay with a woman of her age or a young girl of her age marrying this little boy, just like they are totally okay with marrying off Arya and Sansa and feeling like, well, as long as they've bled, it's okay to get them, have sex with them and get them pregnant. Do you know what I mean? And I don't agree with that, but this is within the society that this show has built, that once she marries him, if she marries him, once they get married, they may have sex, and we may all sit there and think, creepy, but so I'm not saying that she wouldn't ever have sex with him, but I don't think that that's where she is right now. So,
and at the end of the day, it's a TV show. So I mean, that's
And on that note, let's dive into it. I have some more to say about some feedback that we got, particularly regarding the rape stuff at Craster's, but I'll save that for the end because we're unfortunately going back to Craster's in this episode. And it was super rapey then too. Last night was a little rapey. So okay.
But it's very satisfying this time.
Yeah. And we will never be going back there again, thankfully, after last night's episode. Okay, so this episode began with John, how did you like this episode?
I thought it was great mostly because of the Craster stuff, because it was so satisfying to watch that.
Megan?
Yeah, I thought it was a fantastic episode. I thought it had a really great mix of, different characters and their development. And yeah, the Craster stuff at the end with Jon Snow. I think I watched that scene 3 times before I made myself go to sleep.
Yeah.
I have to watch that one more time. That was so badass.
I really enjoyed it as well. I think, I don't want to offend book readers, but there's some stuff, man, y'all got to get over it. I don't know if it's because I've created fiction myself, like things from my imagination, that I just, on the one hand, I would understand where you feel like, no, this is canon and this is how the story should be told and this is how he meant to tell it. But on the other hand, he wrote a book, and TV is a totally different fucking animal. And, we're not going to see the dragons every fucking episode because that shit's expensive. They are going to make some characters like Grey Worm maybe, have a bigger role in the show than he did in the book, because guess what? They have to pay him. So they're not going to pay this actor to be Grey Worm, you know what I mean?
It's a very funny thing. I think that, people that have been reading these books for years and years and years, people that have been there from the very beginning, I think they feel, a sense of ownership to the story.
Right.
And they really want to see it, I'm sure they were loving the show for the most part, most of them, but I can see where people get sort of really taken off guard if the story they've been waiting 8, 9, 10, whatever years to see makes a left turn somewhere.
And again, that I get that part of it, but it's like, also, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of the Walking Dead syndrome, where I read the comics and most of them I've read. And once I did, when I hear people who read the comics complaining that they're not doing exactly what they did in the comics, and I'm like, but the comics kind of sucked at some points. Like, why are you complaining that they did this differently? This is so much better. This is how I feel about Game of Thrones, where these books are, he is a verbose son of a bitch. Okay, like these books are. He will describe the fucking stitchings and the curtains on the wall, you know, and every fucking food on the plate, and 4 pages on like what the air smelled like. Listen, I don't want all that shit in my TV. I want to get to the shit that's good. And I feel like there are people complaining because they're skipping certain stuff. And it's like, look, y'all can pretend like that shit would be interesting on TV if you want to. I know better. This is good what we're getting. Relax.
And
so
For some reason, that reminded me of Adam Sandler and like, what movie was it? Probably Billy Madison. He's like, talkie.
Yes.
No more talkie.
Jesus Christ, George R. R. Martin, relax. Yeah, it's like so much stuff. And I feel like what you're getting is so good. Relax.
I was saying, like, the stuff in the book, like, the scene setting and the world building, it has to be that. Mm-hmm. It has to be so verbose and so wordy. And on a show, they can get through that in, like, 5 seconds. They just show a plate of food and you know what's on it. And so they don't have to explain so many things. And so they have to fill it up. They have to fill up that space with something else.
Yeah. And I think they're doing such a good job. I mean, I get the being sentimental about it, like making setting feeling like you own this, and the books are old and they have been out for a while and people have read them a long time ago. And it's like, wow, we finally get to see this. I don't know. I guess because I grew up reading comics, and right now, like, comic book movies for the past like decade and a half have been so huge. But I don't know. I just know that they can't be the same. Like, they're going to have to change some stuff. And if they're doing a good job, then relax. You're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting really good books and really good TV. Calm down. So, okay. So this episode begins with Tommen's coronation. He is crowned the King of Westeros. And Cersei goes over to Marjorie after the ceremony and questions her about marrying Tommen. She talks about what a fucking nightmare Joffrey was, and how Tommen is different, and he is probably the first like king, like a good king in 50 years, a king that actually deserves to be the king.
When Cersei asked her if she still wants to be queen, I think like the chav came out in Marjorie. She was like, after all this happened.
The chav. She became the slag we knew she could be.
Yes. I think in my recap, I was just like, she goes, I haven't really given it much thought. And in my recap, I was like, girl, bye. Shut up. You.
I think you can feel Cersei's eyebrow raising up, like, bitch, for real.
Yeah. So in this scene with her.
I want to say it's funny though that they keep saying "Long may he reign," and like last week, Marjorie, she was like, "Once we're wed, I'm yours forever," and I'm like, they just did this like 5 minutes ago with Joffrey.
Yeah, right. So there was some, and I mean, this happens 2 more times in this episode. Cersei, like, we've seen a different Cersei in this episode. I would argue not really. She's not really that different. I think we've seen this side of her before, but I think we definitely have not seen it 3 times in the same episode. So we're kind of like, I don't trust this shit. But there was a lot of debate over this scene and what it meant, and was like, why was Cersei doing this? Like, telling her that her son was a nightmare and the things he did shocked her, and she's not easily shocked, but the things he did shocked her, but Tommen is different, and basically saying, like, listen, he's gonna need you to help him. If you're gonna marry him, and she sounds pretty okay with Marjorie marrying him, he's gonna need you to help him. People are confused by this. So what do you guys think Cersei is doing in this scene?
I definitely don't trust her, like, when she does anything. But I think, like we talked about before, like, these are the kinds of moments where she seems sane, where she's like talking with women, like when she had the scenes with Sansa, where she was like, oh, look, this is how you be a queen and stuff like this. So I mean, I think like that's why it gets confusing, is because these are the moments when she is at her sanest, and she's saying things that you can't believe her. You can't believe her when she says these things, because she's Cersei.
Right, and also, I mean, the conversation about the bank comes up later with Tywin, but I don't know at this point how much Cersei realizes they need the Tyrells now.
Yeah.
And so maybe she's just sort of putting on her good graces, because this is, Myrcella is gone. Tommen is her last child.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think that, she's sort of, maybe at this point she sort of already knows that she has to sort of like play this as safely as possible.
Yeah, I definitely think that, I feel like John said, I feel like we have seen her be this way before. There's a lot of stuff that she's done on the show that she hasn't done in the books, and I think that obviously they did that on purpose. And I think that they're, doing kind of like that would be spoilery. Let me just say, I think that they did that on purpose, and I'm fine with that. And I think in one of the spoiler sections for our podcast, I actually said that I feel in the books she was almost cartoon villainous. Do you know what I mean? And on TV,
Right.
and you can maybe get away with that, like the governor in The Walking Dead, where you can probably get away with that in books or comics, but on TV, it's harder to do. I think it's harder for somebody to pull it off and it just not become a joke. And I don't think people want to watch that. Like, you want to watch people, like, it's okay to like not like her and admit that she's done terrible things, but I think she's more interesting when you allow her to have real moments. So I believe everything I think she believes everything she was saying. Like, I truly believe that she knows Joffrey was a hot fucking mess. I mean,
I agree with you.
Right? She has said as much to a really good moment she had with Tyrion in a prior season about how, like the Targaryens, their sanity because of all the inbreeding, like, every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. Like, is he going to be normal? Is he going to be fucking
Right.
crazy?
I feel like she even said something to Ned about Joffrey, like at some point, like, she knows he's horrible, but he's her firstborn son, kind of thing.
So I feel like she is, but that doesn't mean that we can trust why she's being this way. That's the difference. So no. Yeah, and I think that's the thing where I don't understand why people are confused about this, because for me, it's, I believe everything she's saying. Her son was horrible. She knows Tommen is a good kid. Tommen's going to need help. But I feel like at this point, she doesn't know about the money troubles. So I do believe that she is like, okay, keep my enemies close. So she's, she's playing Marjorie in a sense. But what I think happens at the end of the scene, where Marjorie is a lot smarter than Cersei's given her credit for, is when she says, I'm not going to know what to call you, sister or mother. Because remember when she said before, like, you call me sister again and I'll have you strangled in your sleep? Like, I think that was a nice callback where Marjorie was like, yeah, bitch, I'm calling you sister, possibly mother, to your face. Now what? Yeah. Because I think that Marjorie realizes she's only doing this. She needs me. She needs us. I'm not sure why yet, but okay, I'll play along.
I feel like we went into an LL Cool J song for a minute.
Okay, I don't.
I'll call you mother to your face.
I don't get that one. Sorry. Okay, so now we're going to go over to Marine. It's Dany's small council meeting, and she learns quite a few things in this. She learns that Joffrey's dead. She learns that Daario Naharis has taken upon himself with the other second sons to take Marine's Royal Navy, which consists of 93 ships. And she learns that the cities that she just liberated, Yunkai and Astapor, are now basically sliding back into their old ways of being slave cities, where and particularly in Yunkai, I believe, there's a guy called Cleon the Butcher who has declared himself the ruler. And
Astapor.
Was it Astapor? I thought it was the second one. But anyway, I thought it was the second one she took, which would have been Yunkai. But anyway, yeah. So the cities are a hot fucking mess, and so she excuses everyone except Jorah, and she decides that she's going to stay in Marine to rule in order to learn how to rule the Seven Kingdoms.
I like this because, like we've been talking about, she seemed like she was getting too big for her breeches, as George R. R. Martin might say. And so, like, I feel like I feel like this is a smart move for her. Like, she's realizing she's not as good as she maybe thought she was before now.
What was I going to say about that? I think I'm just going to say something really funny. Last night when we were doing the live tweeting, Lamont Price, who tweets Game of Thrones, he said, my friend's list, he's a comedian, but he said the look on Dany's face when she found out that Joffrey was killed was the equivalent of word. so funny.
And it's so accurate. I know she was like, damn, these motherfuckers trying to make it easy for me.
Right.
It's like every season she's getting word that another one of these fuckers has died.
I know, and I think that there's one point where Jorah's like, well, you're the mother of dragons, and she's like, well, I have to be so much more. That shit was 2 seasons ago.
Right.
Yeah, Jorah's like her yes man, and she's like, no, I have to be better than that.
Well, I think it was Katoria who said on Twitter last night that Jorah is a horrible hype man. Okay, so I feel like this is part of what I think I'd said in several places, so forgive me if I'm like repeating myself or if it's something I said in the spoiler section, but I know it's not a spoiler. I'm really worried that this show and these books can't have a satisfying ending to some degree. And I say that because when it started, we had very clear villains, right? We had Viserys, and he got his golden crown. His ass was gone. We kind of thought like Drogo or Khal Drogo was going to be a bad guy, right? Like when she was sold to him and all this. But then there was, clearly Joffrey and oh God, the other one. Now I'm drawing a blank. But we had like people we wanted when Daenerys came over there with her dragons, right? We were just like, oh, I can't wait for this. I feel like if she stays in Meereen, and for all we know, I just feel like Cersei might die. And like, what satisfaction are we going to have by the time she gets over there? Does that make sense? Like, I get she needs to learn to lead. I get that. And I get that she doesn't want to, disrupt these, these cities, these lands. Granted, the way they were living was wrong and slavery is wrong, but you came over there and you liberated, and now you thought you were going to bounce. So I respect her for saying, no, okay, I need to stay and make sure this shit is stable before I go. I get that. But I'm just worried because I'm like, they're dropping like flies in Westeros. By the time she gets over there, like, I wanted the satisfaction. I wanted the satisfaction of seeing Joffrey's face when her fucking dragons were fucking shit up. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know. I just feel like that has happened a lot so far in the show. Like, even with Locke. Like, Locke cut off Jaime's hand. I wanted Jaime to get some revenge. That's not going to happen because Hodor killed him. Like, and I guess this is more realistic because that's how life goes, right? Like, people get away with shit all the time, and maybe they'll get theirs in another way and maybe not. But I feel like in my fiction and my TV, I want to see my heroes defeat.
There is a lack of like an eye for an eye kind of stuff.
Yes, it's like all over the place. So I'm just scared. That's all. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just scared that by the time she gets over to fucking Westeros, everybody of importance that I like, Tywin, Cersei, like who knows how long it's going to take her. Do you know what I mean? And I just want to see.
It'll just be little Robin breastfeeding away.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And then it'll be like Jon is in charge or something, and it's like he doesn't deserve to have a dragon up his ass, So I like the fact that Daario took it upon himself to snatch at them ships. He was like, I heard you like ships. I put on Twitter, bitches love ships.
He's like casually tossing peanuts or something in his mouth.
It's like, I heard you like ships, yeah. And Jorah is super filthy. Why is Jorah so filthy?
I said that last night. I'm rooting for you, Jorah, but do you fucking bathe? Like, and like Daario has like perfectly like waxed eyebrows.
Yeah.
Like,
that was awful.
He has given up.
He really has. He's like, I'm done trying to impress this bitch. She's not paying me any attention anyway. Okay, so the next scene is Littlefinger and Sansa, and they arrive at the Eyrie, and we learn that they kind of mentioned this before when Tyrion was being brought there by Catelyn to stand trial. But the area is surrounded by mountains, and there's only one way in. And it's through this blood gate, and there's only one road that leads to that gate. And so I think in the show last night, Littlefinger said that it's never been taken, which
right.
I don't think that that's true, and I have to check with somebody who's an expert on the books like Natasha or Brendan. You guys are welcome to join in here. But I thought that one of the female Targaryens that came over when they conquered on the dragon, like the dragon can totally just fly over that shit and fuck shit up, and that's what happened. But
I don't think Littlefinger is above lying, though. So he's probably like, yeah, this is great. This is a great place. It's totally safe.
Yeah,
Nobody's ever beaten us.
But so anyway, the point is that, as it stands now, like with the armies that they have now, that's why Lysa didn't want to leave and she didn't want to get involved to help Rob, because she knew she was totally safe at the Vale. So they go in.
This reminded me of the Battle of Thermopylae, where it's like, the 300 Spartans versus the Persians, where they bottlenecked them up to beat them.
Yeah. So they go inside, and she's greeted by Lysa and Robin. And she tells her son who Sansa really is. Sansa tries to pretend that she is his niece. Did he say niece? He said niece, right? Yeah.
Niece Elaine, I think.
Yeah.
Like
It's Elaine. I come because in the books he says she's his bastard daughter. So yeah, they changed it to niece. So I just wanted to make sure I got it right. But yeah, so we know that Lysa is aware of exactly who Sansa is, and she instructs her son not to refer to her as such when other people are around, and then she asks him to leave them alone. To show, his cousin to her room. So before we jump into what happens after that, let's talk about Lysa and Robin. So why is that child allowed to be so close to that open moon door? Like,
I said that last time too. I'm like, just leave that shit wide open. What is that?
When she was like, I wanted to make the little man fly, but mommy wouldn't let me, and they introduced the moon door. I'm like, why is he? And did you notice he threw the gift
immediately down the moon door? You grateful little shit.
I was like, this little fucker. That kid is so fucking.
I know that place is not baby proof for a child that's still breastfeeding.
No, my God.
I felt like they were foreshadowing, like someone's going to fall out that window.
Me too, John. Me too.
Yeah, we did see somebody go through there already, but yeah, I feel like they make it a point to just show you that shit should just open for no fucking reason at all, which just doesn't seem like a very smart thing to do.
Yeah.
It'll
either be Robin or Lysa. Is one of the two.
Okay. And I like the fact that they show that, what a little shit this kid is. I don't know if they've brought it up in the show, but it's definitely mentioned in the book that he's kind of sickly. Yeah, I don't think that they've mentioned it in the show, but yeah, he comes off in the books like I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know if I'm not sure specifically what it would be, like if it's like asthma or something like that, but he also is kind of slow. And I don't know if that part is because he is so sheltered, do you know what I mean? And he doesn't like have other kids to play with and stuff. But like when he walks up to her and he's like, yeah, my mom said that they killed your mother and cut your brother's head off. It's like, Jesus, kid. Like let that little fucker around some people, teach us some social graces, because this kid is horrible.
But then he did say, and then they killed my dad too. So I mean, yeah. I felt like he was just like, he was relating.
But yeah, but that's not how you. Yeah, exactly. But that's my point. Yeah. That's not how you do it. Like you don't just say that to somebody first off, And then, so did you notice when Lysa said, "Oh, I know exactly who you are. You think I would let my intended just go off to, on some secret mission that I didn't know about? Like I had him do it to bring you to me." And I feel like that is obviously not the case. It kind of felt like a woman who, like when it's made public that a woman has been lied to or made a fool of, and then it's like that, oh, I knew. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I totally knew the whole time. It felt like it was half that and half he has manipulated her to think that bringing Sansa there was her idea. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. But after Robin and Sansa leave, she immediately attacks Littlefinger. And she wants to get married. She wants to get married that night. She brings up the fact that they've already had sex. And then she drops the bomb that she murdered Jon Arryn. And
I was not seeing that coming.
So that is what I was just like, I was wondering like what you guys' reaction would be, because so basically what she says is that he talked her into killing her husband and gave her the poison, which she put in his wine. And then he's the one who told her to write the letter to Catelyn saying that it was the Lannisters.
Right.
And because she is running her fucking mouth, he shuts her up with a kiss. Like,
I know. It was well timed.
like, hello, that moon door is open. Anybody can, like.
I thought it was so funny because I mentioned this before when Joffrey was poisoned, that, you know, they had said in season 1 that poison was a woman's game. It's like, well, poison is a woman's game, but Peter Baelish is the one fucking behind it.
Yeah, right. He's supplying
the
the
women do the poisoning. He's the one that gets them the poison.
Yeah. So how do you guys feel about that? Like, that's pretty huge, because basically the death of Jon Arryn and Catelyn's decision to, you know, to tell Ned, yeah, you gotta go now and be the hand of the king, because you gotta find out like what they did and why they did it. And then to some degree, well, yeah, even her taking Tyrion was Littlefinger, because he's the one who told her that the knife that was used to try to, you know, kill Bran after he was when he was in the bed belonged to Tyrion. So how do you guys feel about Littlefinger basically being behind everything that's happened?
Everything that's happened. Like, I don't know where this is going, but it makes me want to go back from the very beginning and watch everything over again. That was my very first thought.
Yeah, it seems really cool to find that he has really been behind everything.
Yeah. I will say that when I read this in the book, so he doesn't have a POV chapter, I don't think, ever. Like, in all the books, I don't think he's ever been a POV chapter. Like, Robb wasn't a POV chapter at all either. And so when he died, I felt like it was just really fucked up. And Catelyn was a POV character, so, like, you know, the Red Wedding in itself was just awful, so you felt it. But I never really felt the loss of Robb beyond, oh man, like, he was our last hope for the Starks, you know what I mean? But, like, as a person, as a character, you just didn't really know him, you know? Because everything he did was off, like, from somebody else's point of view. Okay. But with this, Littlefinger is, like, hardly around. And so when I read it, I kind of felt like, what? Like, that's a bit of a fucking cop-out. Because it's like somebody that you don't see, to find out that they're so instrumental. And it's like in the same scene that you find out that he is fucking Lysa and about to marry her. And then you find out, oh, and by the way, this is what he did. It felt kind of, I don't know. I just didn't. I like it, the development better in the show than I did when I read it. Because I feel like you have seen more of him. Just enough that you kind of, like, you don't really forget him. You know what I mean? Like, but in the book, it felt like it came out of nowhere. And
he feels like a character that we have gotten to know is capable of things like that.
Yeah. Whereas before it was like, and I think it was Natasha in one of their podcasts for the show, when they did the episode, it might have been like the second season premiere. Remember when he had his own sigil made, and it was like the Mockingbird, and he had the pin, and Cersei approached him, and then they were talking, and she was asking him to find Arya, and he made a smart remark basically about her fucking Jaime, and he was saying how knowledge is power, and then she ordered the guards to grab him and then cut his throat, and then she goes, oh, no, never mind. And then she was showing how, no, power is power. I think it was Natasha who was really upset with that scene because it's not in the books, and she felt like one of the things that made this reveal so great is that this character has been able to do this because he doesn't let people know his true intentions. Like he said last week, if you don't let people know you want the power, they don't think about you. They won't, think you have a motive. So for him to kind of play his hand in that scene with Cersei, she just was like, why the fuck did they add that? Because now you may think of him as a threat or something. Whereas now when all this shit comes out, you're like, what? So, yeah. So,
and then, because he did disappear for so long, though, I think, like we mentioned when he did show back up, like, we had forgotten he existed because there were so many characters on the show. So I think, even if you did think he was a threat before he disappeared, like when he came back, I mean, it was a long enough amount of time that you felt like you had forgotten him.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, but I do like the fact that what this shows is that he could only do so much. Like, yeah, he did a lot of the major stuff, like telling her to kill her husband and getting the bitch to do it is pretty major. And her writing that letter. But, you know, he had no way of knowing that, you know, what's her name? Catelyn would kidnap Tyrion. And that people,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, and people would respond in these ways and do this stuff. He was hoping, but you know, so they're ultimately they are responsible for their own actions, you know, when they present it with this information. But yeah, it was kind of mind-blowing that he orchestrated the whole thing. So before we move on to the last part of this, I did put in my notes, I like the fact that Sansa defended Tyrion.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did too.
Yeah. And Lysa was like, when she goes, no, he didn't want to marry me either. Like they made him marry. She was like, I don't believe that for a minute. I'm like, but bitch, you're crazy. Oh, and did you guys notice when she hugged Sansa, her smile disappeared?
Oh yeah.
Right? I was like, oh. And I think that, oh, I meant to mention it in the scene with Cersei, the same thing when she said, right before she said he's going to need help, but talking about Tommen, she rolled her eyes and looked up at the ceiling. So that's another reason I don't know why people are so confused. Like, I really feel like this was her doing what she felt she needed to do to keep her enemy close. Okay, so Sansa leaves and we get this big bombshell. And she wants to get married that night. And he's like, well, let me go take a shower. And she's like, no need. The Septon's already here. And she announces that when her husband makes love to her that night, she's going to scream so loud they're going to hear it across the narrow sea. And that's exactly what happens.
Speaking of rolling your eyes, though, like when he said, yeah, as soon as I'm done, you know, taking a shower or whatever, I'll call the Septon. And she's like, nope. And she opened the door and he's right here. I love that because he was like, oh man, I thought I was out of this. I was gonna leave out the window.
He was going to jump out the moon door. Holy crap. So yeah, and then we get this horrible, oh, this is why I said Sansa can't catch a fucking break. Have you guys ever had to like sleep over at like a relative's house that you didn't want to sleep over?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I kind of felt like that's what this is, but like 150 times worse. Like, like
Yeah,
you're
this is pretty bad.
yeah, you're not going home. Like, this is now your home, and this is the kind of shit you have to hear. And it's like, why was she? Oh, I just got a douche chill. Like, why was she screaming so fucking loud? It was so disgusting. And poor Sansa could not sleep. And I was just like,
I feel like that. I mean, she was sending a message to Sansa by screaming so loudly. That's what I got out of it.
okay.
I think she was just crazy enough to be a screamer like
Yeah,
that.
I think so too. I think that if Sansa hadn't been there, this is the type of chick she's ridiculous. And then she did kind of also drop the little nugget that they've had sex before.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
years ago, and he was like, yeah, feels like just yesterday. Like, oh, you could practically see him throw up in his mouth. So okay, so now we are with Tywin and Cersei. He wants to know when Tommen's going to marry Marjorie, and she goes, whenever it seems like an appropriate amount of time has passed for him to mourn his brother. He goes, what, a fortnight? She's like, yeah, that'll do. I'm like, oh my god. 2 weeks is like their, you know, go-to length of time. And then he wants to know when she'll marry Sir Loras, and she goes like a fortnight after that. And then he breaks down why they need the Tyrells so much, because basically they're broke. Their mines have not produced any gold in 3 years. So I guess it is true that they don't really shit gold.
They don't shit gold, and they make larger debts. They don't necessarily pay them off.
Yeah, and he basically financed, we know that he financed the kingdom basically the whole time Robert was king. And then when Robert died and these wars began, he had to finance that. We know the Tyrells have given them money, but he borrowed money from the Iron Bank of Bravos, and they have no way of paying it back. Unless, like he says, we need to have the Tyrells invested in the crown. So that's why he wants Marjorie to definitely marry Tom, and he wants his daughter. I mean, if Jamie could marry a Tyrell, he'd have that shit go down too. Because
Jamie will marry Loras.
Yes. Oh my god, it would be the first gay marriage in Westeros.
First gay marriage in Westeros.
But yeah, he wants them invested in how well, you know, like they make his debt their debt, basically. So, Yeah, they're broke. What do you make of that?
I know. I kind of thought it was funny when she walked away from the table and made a joke that Tywin should have told her to pour that wine back in the bottle that she got it from.
Yeah,
She
right.
left half a glass. You don't leave half a glass of wine. You're down to pennies. And the
And
way you drink, you better
yeah,
pour that shit back in the bottle.
I really feel like I cannot remember the last episode where Cersei didn't have a scene where she was holding a glass of wine. I feel like
Yeah.
every episode she's been in, not just this season, but I want to say as far back as like Blackwater, that might have started her bad, horrible drinking habits.
Right.
I like in this scene where he says that he didn't like Robert because he used to pat him on the back a lot.
He was like, Robert was always getting in my personal space.
Which is, I love that so much. I love the way it was phrased because it's not the way I would have expected Tywin Lannister to say that. I thought he would have said something like, he had a bad habit of patting me on the back. But for him to just, I don't know, it almost felt kind of beneath him to say it that way. Like, it
Right.
really bothered him. And then, can you just imagine that, though? Like, as boisterous and loud and rude as Robert was, like, oh.
Coming up to you and slapping you right between the shoulder
Right.
blades all the time.
And the
Right,
look,
Tywin? Right?
yes, the look on his face. It was probably like a cross between the look he got when Oberyn asked if he wanted to have a seat in the whorehouse, and
Exactly.
when Lady Olenna asked him if are you sure you never fucked boys? Are you sure? Like, not even once. God, I love Charles Dance.
And you got to imagine that Robert never really washed his hands either.
Probably
So,
not. Oh yeah. And then I just want to read a quote about like what he says about the Iron Bank of Bravos and like why it's so bad to owe them money. Because she's like, well, can't you like call someone? Well, not call someone, but like, can't you like talk to somebody there and like
send a raven.
Yeah, send a raven and make some arrangements. Like, can we get a payment arrangement? Can we pay them a little bit every month? And he's like, she goes, it must be comprised of people, and he goes, a temple is comprised of stones. One stone crumbles and another takes its place, and the temple holds its form for 1,000 years or more. That's what the Iron Bank is, a temple. We all live in its shadow, and almost none of us know it. You can't run from them. You can't cheat them. You can't sway them with excuses. If you owe them money and you don't want to crumble yourself, you pay it back. So now we know that he was worried when he was trying to act like he wasn't
Right.
when talking to Lady Olenna. And so what do you guys think this means for now, what's his face? Davos is writing the Iron Bank. So do you have like any ideas of like what that letter is going to say? Like what he's going to do?
Well, I mean, I just assumed between that episode and this one that, Davos was going to try and turn the Iron Bank against the Lannisters
Okay.
because they owe him so much money, but I don't really know that for certain, obviously.
Like we learned, like we kind of hear a lot in this episode about the Iron Bank, and maybe it's just me, but I still kind of don't even know what the hell they are. I mean, it seems like they're a bank, but I mean, like it's really an ominous company kind of out there. It's just like.
Yeah.
You don't really know what they can do and who they really are and how big their numbers are. It doesn't seem like, because for Tywin to be worried about this, they have to be dangerous.
Yeah, I feel like there is a lot of mystery around Bravos because that's where the Faceless Men are from. What's his name? Jack and Hakar.
Mm-hmm.
And Sirio, and like, so I feel like Bravos is a bit of a mysterious place with some possibly really dangerous people. And you're right, he doesn't specifically say like, okay, what could they do? Are they going to come like repossess some shit? Like what? But it sounds like they could do a lot. And I don't want to say.
And they're just going to come repossess some of them swords.
Right? They're going to take the Iron Throne. You're going to be sitting in like a folding chair.
Anything they walk in, they like pluck Jamie's hand. We'll take that. That's solid gold.
Tom is just sitting there in an easy chair. He's just like, this doesn't feel the same.
Right. So I think it was Bald Move. I think Aaron had said in a podcast that what they're kind of known for doing when people don't pay their debt. So I'm not going to say it because I feel like this episode came closest to saying that explicitly. But if you guys haven't said it, I'm not going to say it. So yeah, you just don't want to fuck with them. And I will say that there are some people who haven't read the books who wrote into other podcasts that were suspecting that Davos was going to ask them for money, and then when they like bring it over on a ship, he was going to steal it, like have his pirates steal it. I was just like, okay, that might happen. So there's some pretty interesting theories out there on like why Davos is writing them and what he wants. And so this scene ends with her basically getting in a little dig about Tyrion's trial. She brings up her brothers. He says that he understands that she's making a case against Tyrion, as is her right as a mother, but as a judge, he can't discuss the case with her. And I thought, how un-Tywin-like of you. Like, so are you guys worried about, like, do you believe he's going to be fair to Tyrion?
I don't know. I'm very worried about Tyrion.
Okay.
I'm not sure they even get to a trial. I mean, because
that's true too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine, like, because I can't imagine him being found not guilty if they do go to trial, and I don't think that he would be found guilty because I don't want him to be off the show.
Okay. So you guys are still worried about Tyrion?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so she basically says, you know, and what this whole conversation is about is how what's most important is the Lannister name, right? And the fact that they have to keep their family strong. I do think, you know, I haven't heard anybody mention this, but I did think back to the episode where when Arya was his cupbearer, and she asked about his father, and he said he watched his father, or was it his father's father? I think it was his father, like almost squander their fortune. So that has stuck with me. Like he's big on the family name, but he's also big on, I'm kind of surprised that he let this happen. Do you know what I mean? Like he's allowed them to be so indebted to the Iron Bank. I don't know. But then it goes back to like, I don't know, certain addictions being hereditary. So I don't know. I don't know if I don't know. I just found that really weird that he kind of looked down on his dad for almost squandering away their fortune on bad decisions. And he's like basically done the same thing. And I'm not sure how minds work, but I would imagine that, I guess after 3 years, if your mines aren't producing anything, then that means they're tapped, right? Like, I mean, it's not like gold is growing. Like, so, okay. So yeah, so she basically says, you know, if you disowned, Jamie for turning against the family name, what should you do to Tyrion for basically setting that name on fire? You know, basically like you should hang the little bastard is what she's saying. Okay, so now we have Arya and the Hound, and their scenes actually start and then break up and then come back. So I'm just going to say it as one thing. They're turning in for the night, but she's doing her little death prayer where she's naming all the people she's going to kill. He wants her to shut the fuck up. They have a little bonding moment over the fact that they both want his brother dead, the Mountain. And he finally tells her to shut up and go to sleep. And she says, well, I just have one more name. And she says the Hound.
And then he kind of like, he side eyes her like, yeah, whatever.
I don't know how the fuck he went to sleep. Because I wouldn't have gone to sleep. I'm sorry.
Because, I mean, he's the Hound and she's Arya. And she's a little girl. That's why.
But
I really loved her reciting this because, like, in this scene I felt like she came across as someone now who can actually get that done. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Seems,
yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, I feel like this is not just like the first night that they met. And that's the other thing. Like, I was trying to figure out what they were saying this was, because we know this is something she says every night. And just in case you weren't clear, she says, I can't go to sleep until I say it. So it's such a part of her routine that this is actually something she needs to do. So it's like, you mean to tell me that this is the first time he's heard it to the point where he's surprised at what this list is? You know, when he says, oh, after you name everybody in Westeros, and she goes, no, just the ones I'm going to kill. He looks surprised at that. So I was like, okay, maybe he's just heard her say it and he's never bothered to ask her about it. I'll give them that. But at this point, you've seen this little girl take a knife from you and you didn't even feel it. You've seen her kill 2 people. 3, really. So it's like, I don't know. I just kind of felt like you would not go to sleep because this is a little girl who could stick you in your neck while you're sleeping. But that's exactly what he does.
I wouldn't go to sleep, but I think the Hound, he would go to sleep. I think because he's the Hound.
And then I even thought, well, yeah, he's the Hound, and maybe she could. He feels like she couldn't sneak up on him while he's sleeping or whatever. But then he wakes up in the morning and she's gone, and he's like surprised that she's gone. I'm like,
Right.
And actually,
you could have been dead.
like in the later scene where she tries to stab him, I think he was a little surprised that she actually did it. So maybe he actually was thinking that she wasn't serious, like she didn't really want to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of, I thought it was a little bit of that, you know, she says this, she has all this anger, he knows she's really angry, she wants to kill the world, but, you know.
Yeah, and I could buy that. So yeah, he finds her practicing her water dancing. He makes fun of her. He doesn't believe that she was like, you know, trained by a first sword of Bravos, which is, you know, apparently a big deal. I love the fact that he points out that, that, you know, she was like, he's dead. And he goes, who, killed by who? And she goes, Sir Meryn Trant. He goes, Sir Meryn Trant. And he goes, he couldn't kill a first sword of Bravos. Like, because even he knows. He's like, those are badasses, and you're telling me that guy killed him? And then she goes, but he didn't have a sword, you know? He didn't have any, all he had was a wooden stick. And then he's like, wait, a first sword of Bravos with a wooden stick? Like, this, we know it's true, but you can see from his, you know, perspective why this story would just sound like bullshit. And yeah, so he wants to see her moves, and she shows him, and she tries to stab him in the stomach, and to the point where even when it met the armor, she pushed some more. Like,
Yeah.
and he backhands her, and you know,
I do think like he was a little surprised that she did that. So I mean, I think that does explain why he wouldn't be as scared of her, like to go to sleep around her.
Okay. Yeah, I will still only half buy it, but that's just me. So yeah, he backhands her and gives her back her sword. And that's the last we see of them in that episode.
I love that he's like, after she did that and he backhanded her, he's like, yeah, he died because the other guy had armor. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So then we're back with Lysa giving Sansa some sweets, and she's talking about Catelyn, telling her stories about her mother that aren't very favorable, and then she starts to berate Sansa, wondering why Peter wanted her there so badly, and basically accuses her of sleeping with Peter and possibly being pregnant. And Sansa cries and assures her that, you know, she's a virgin and that, you know, Peter doesn't look at her that way. And her aunt finally says, okay, good, because you're going to marry your cousin Robin.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Poor Sansa, her face was like, wait, what? Like, what?
I couldn't help but remember like when Jaime and Brienne were having that conversation where he was like, where do you think she would be safer than here? And it's like, you see this, like, Sansa really isn't safe anywhere. Like, she was kind of just as safe in King's Landing as she is here.
I think here she's definitely, I would say, quote unquote, safer here.
Well, in light of the recent events, she's safer here. But,
yeah. I mean, at this point, right, because she shows up in King's Landing, her head's coming off.
But a Stark being happy and a Stark being safe are two totally different things.
Yeah, right, exactly. And at this point...
It seems like the happier they get, the more unsafe they are.
Right, I was just going to say, at this point, I might be ready to give up. I might be like, you know what? Fuck you, Seven Gods. You clearly can't stand my ass because you won't cut me a fucking break. Fuck you. I would just throw myself out the moon door. Because I would not marry that little weird kid. Oh my God, poor Sansa. And I used to not like her, but I'm starting to really like her this season, and I just felt awful for her in this scene.
Yeah, I really like her a lot this season too.
Something I liked was when she was eating those lemon cakes or whatever they were. She was, and Lysa was like, you know, when your mother, she got fat when she was eating, and then so Sansa stops eating, and she's like, no, keep eating. I felt like she was like, yeah, get fat so that Peter doesn't want you anymore.
Really? You're the second person who said that. I think Natasha said that, and I was like, I totally didn't get that at all. I just thought
I thought she was being like, she was like being like a silly aunt, like, no, go ahead, have your sweets,
like trying to get her defenses down, and like that she's so that what she did next, which was basically like jump in her ass and be like, are you fucking my man, like that type of thing. Yeah.
I think it's informed though, for me, by what she does next. When she does accuse her of sleeping with Peter, it's like it seemed like she was jealous, and so she wants her to get fat. Like she was saying, your mother got fat, and I want you to get fat.
But see, the thing is, I didn't believe that. I don't think Catelyn was ever fat. I think that's the problem. I think Catelyn was clearly the better looking of the two, and like this guy wanted her, and I just felt bad the things she was saying to her about her mom. Like, this woman is fucking nuts. I do not, and I will say though, she's doing a really good job. The actress.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know her from anything else that I can remember anyway, but she's doing, I really like the actress for this part.
And did you guys notice that they didn't, thankfully, because that kid, he hasn't aged as much as the actor playing Bran, but when he was like, oh, look what Uncle Peter bought me. Yeah, she goes, a beautiful gift for a beautiful boy. When he said that, I felt like his voice was a bit deeper. He's definitely taller. So obviously, you know, he has aged, but I think in the books he's still he's still breastfeeding, and it's the same way in the books. Like, you see him in the first season when for Tyrion's trial and he's breastfeeding, and then you see him now, and I think in the book he's still breastfeeding, but I feel like they realized that it would have been a bit much to show it. But I think that the way they were sitting when they first came in, I think was meant to imply, you know, because his face was resting on her bosom, you know. Yeah.
He wiped his milk mustache out of his real mustache.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's disgusting.
There's milk of the poppy and there's milk of the mommy.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so then the next scene is Podrick trying to ride a horse. And this is the funniest shit. I got to tell you, I was not a big fan of this part of the books, like these two. Like, I felt like they were just on the road a lot looking for Sansa, and it was quite boring. So I was just, when this scene first happened, I was like live tweeting, and then the next couple of times I watched this episode, like to write my recap, I wasn't really looking, I was writing more. It wasn't until I watched it before this to like take notes that I actually looked at the scene, and it's fucking hilarious because she's riding in a straight line, Brienne, and Podrick is like riding around her in circles and like going backwards.
Yeah, he totally has like a blind horse or something.
Oh my god, it was pure physical comedy. I loved it. But yeah, he can't ride a horse, and we learn that Brienne basically tries to she relieves him of his oath, you know, releases him and saying that he could go, and he doesn't want to go. And then I'm just going to put their two scenes together. Later, she comes to their camp and sees that he was trying to cook a rabbit. He didn't skin it. He didn't cut the head off. He just... It was like a full furry rabbit on fire.
He just set it on fire. He's like, this is how this works, right?
Then he stomped on it and he's like, it's done.
I was like, Rick Grimes would be really upset with the way you disrespected that rabbit. So he can't cook, and we find out that as Tyrion's squire, all he really had to do was pour wine. Like, he you know, he didn't have to do the things that most squires had to do, so he doesn't have like all these other skills.
He was more like a butler. He was like, he did the laundry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He brought him his meals. He didn't make his meals.
Yeah. So she's like, so when she's like, well, what other skills, you know, basically at this point she realized he doesn't have many skills. So she wants to know, okay, well, have you ever been in combat, you know? And he tells her that he killed the guy at the Battle of Blackwater. He killed one of the Kingsguard that had tried to kill Tyrion. And this gets her respect, even though he was like, I stabbed him in the back of the head with a spear, which really doesn't take... You know, it's kind of dirty fighting, but, you know, he did what he had to do. But I like the fact that she was like, okay, he can kill when he needs to, which I think bumped him up in her estimation.
Yeah, she found out that he killed a guy with a trident, and so she was like, all right, now you're good enough to take my armor off.
Yeah, right, which she wouldn't let him do before. So that is the end of them for the episode. And then we go to Cersei and Oberyn. So this is like her third scene where some very un-Cersei-like behavior. She takes a walk with him, and we find out he has 8 daughters. The 5th one, named after Elia, she's the most difficult. I love the fact that he will find any way to talk about that dead woman when he's with the Lannister, won't he? Like, he's like, in case you forgot.
It's like when you owe someone money. Or like when someone owes you money, you're always like, yeah, by the way, you know, that's $5.
Right, exactly.
You know, if I had $5, I could buy this over here.
Yeah,
I don't have $5.
Yeah. I was like, he managed to slip in his dead sister whenever he's talking to a Lannister. But she kind of bonds with him a little bit in her own Cersei way, talking about how, how they're both in positions of power, but when it came down to it, he couldn't save his sister, she couldn't save her son. And then she asked him for a favor. She had a ship made for Myrcella, and he tries to assure her that Myrcella's happy in Dorne. The last time he saw her, she was swimming with two of his daughters, and she's like, well, will you, have this ship sent to her, which he agrees to do, and tell her that her mother misses her very much. So what is Cersei up to?
I mean, well, Oberyn's going to be on the judges panel. Judges panel, to hopefully.
You said it like it's American Idol.
It's American Idol. It's going to be Oberyn, Simon Cowell,
and Randy Jackson.
That was a little pitchy.
Yo, dog, did you poison him? Yeah. So I feel like she's just sort of trying to, maybe wiggle into his heart a little bit, but I think he's too smart for that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, did he buy it? Man, he got 8 daughters.
That's all? I mean, shit.
Right? As many people as he's fucked.
It's 8 that he knows of.
Yeah, so she's going to have this ship set. And I love when he says, when he's trying to reassure her that her daughter's okay, and he goes, we don't hurt little girls in Dorne. And she goes, little girls are hurt everywhere.
That was a great line.
It was.
Little girls are hurt all over the world. And
because
I was like,
that endeared me a little bit to Cersei, because I feel like in this episode, there are a lot of sobering moments with her, where you realize either she's really faking it really well, or you're realizing that she lost her son, and so then it's like she is really actually mourning. Yeah. Like, because of that. And so she's thinking about that, and she's an actual person. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in this episode, that was shown a little bit.
Right. And this isn't the same as Cersei from season 1, where she has, she's the queen, and she has her king husband, and she doesn't have the security that she had back then after all the shit that's gone on. And I think we saw some of this of her when they're, the Battle of Blackwater, when she's like getting shit-faced in the room, like she's talking to Sansa. She's like, look, he's here to kill us because we're going to get raped, or this and that. And she's sort of saying, like, this is the way it is for us. This is what happens to us, and that's it.
And I think that we talked about this before when we said that she seems to have this. She realizes that this is a horrible time to be a woman, like in this world, and that she felt like they're not taken seriously, and that her brothers didn't take the responsibility and the things that they were just given because they're boys. They didn't take that seriously, and so she never, she didn't want to learn how to embroider. She wanted to learn how to use a sword. So I really feel like that, again, I feel like I believed a lot of the emotional stuff she said in this episode. I don't believe her when she says she's going to marry Loras. I really think that she's going to try to get the fuck out of that. But I do think the stuff she said about Joffrey and loving your firstborn like nothing else, and even despite the horrible things they do, all of this stuff, I felt like this was all the truth. But I think she's sharing it for, she has ulterior motives for why she's allowing people to see her be this vulnerable. But that doesn't mean the vulnerability isn't real. So yeah,
and we learned that it's been quote unquote over a year since she's seen her daughter.
So she's seen Myrcella. Yeah, we've had some debates with some Ben and who writes for Project Fandom on like how long the show has been, and I just he thinks it's been like 3+ years. And I think maybe it's been 3 years, but I feel like they're really careful to keep referring to things like a fortnight, a few months. Like Jamie said, he was held prisoner for a few months. I think we could tell the first season Daenerys, that was maybe a year because she was pregnant, but she went into premature labor. You know what I mean? So I don't know that it's been that long, but
yeah, I think it's been about 2 years, because over a year since her daughter left. That was season 2, episode 6. So I mean about another year before that. So I think about 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years.
I mean, and they, like I said, they did some really interesting stuff just to like be able to set up like time reference of how long things take. Somebody leaves for Winterfell from King's Landing, that's a month. Like they set that up in the first episode. It takes a month. So, okay, so the next scene is at the wall, and beyond the wall. Locke is scouting out Craster's Keep. he spots the little shed or shack or wherever where they got Bran and his crew tied up, and he goes back to Jon's men and he tells them a lie. He tells them that there are about 11 of the deserters there. They don't have any guards posted. They don't have a care in the fucking world. But they should stay away from this little, shack on the west side of the property. And when Jon asks why, he says they have hounds tied up in there and they don't want the hounds getting a whiff of them and giving up, their presence before they're ready. So at this point on Twitter, I was like, I cannot believe this show has put us in a position where we are actually rooting for Locke, because I just wanted him to start fucking up some of those assholes.
I did too, but I was really hoping that would happen. Actually, the way this whole part plays out is exactly how I wanted it to happen, I will say.
Yeah. Me too, with one little exception, but...
All right.
Okay, so then, and this is like, this was a lot of back and forth, but I'm just saying everything in a group because it's easier. So then inside the little hut or shack or whatever the fuck that is, Jojen tells Bran that he mustn't give up, when he gets to the hill. And we see kind of this shared vision of one of those weirwood trees, and he tells him that they're there, meaning him and Mira and Hodor. They're just there to guide him for where he needs to go. And he says, this isn't the end. This isn't the end. And when his sister asks, well, when will we know when the end is? And he goes, we'll know. And he's like looking at his hand, and his hand is on fire.
Yeah, this scene made Jojen really cool in my eyes. Like,
really?
he seems like Bran, but more experienced and less, I don't know, unable to walk.
And less what?
I was going to say naive or childlike, but Jon says less able to walk.
Yeah, less unable to walk.
Less unable to walk, right. Okay.
Less mobile. Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like, I just have I know there are people who disagree with me, but I just feel like all this shit beyond the wall with Bran was extremely boring in the book. So I love this little Craster's Keep detour that doesn't happen in the books. I thought this made it so much more interesting. And I actually did have to watch this scene like twice before I kind of understood the point of it and what Jojen was saying, because I thought this was just an excuse to do some cool, effects or whatever. But I like the message and what he's giving, where it's basically like you're just driving home that point that he brought up when, they first met, which is getting you where you need to go is important. And we're just there to help make that happen. Like, we are not important. Which is kind of fucked up. If I was Mira, I'd be like, wait a minute, what? Like, wait, why?
He's the Eugene of Westeros.
Yes.
She kind of was like that. She was like, yeah, but when will we know when the end is? Because I'm getting kind of tired of hanging here.
Right, and what does the end mean? Like, does the end mean we get to go back home? Like, what are you saying? Because they can't see the hand on fire thing. Because he's kind of like, oh, we'll know when it's the end because our asses will be burning up.
It's like, yeah, you guys are there, but we're not there.
Right. So Carl comes in with two other of the guys, the deserters, and they're about to rape Mira when Jojen tries to make a deal. He tells him that he has the gift of sight. He can see things that are going to happen, and he can be of use to him. And Carl is a dick. He's like, can you see us raping your sister? I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, my God.
It was not that was funny, but the thing before that was funny when he was like, I have the sight. I can see things. And he was like, that's not very helpful at all because I can see things.
Yes. Right. And so he tells him, I see that you die tonight. I see your body. I see you burn and the snow covering your bones. The snow falling on your bones.
I saw your body burn, and I saw the snow fall and bury your bones. I really love that line. That was really cool. And the way that the actor delivered it was great.
And you can see, like, at this point, Carl's a little like, yeah, wait, what now? Like, let's talk about this some more. But one of his men comes running in telling him that the Night's Watch is there. So he rushes out. And
Thank God, because I was not down with that rape.
Oh, yeah, I was seriously, listen.
I was like, I'm not, most rape, I'm like, No, I couldn't hear. I was like, this cannot be happening right now. This is not going to happen. And people on Twitter were saying the same thing. People on Twitter were like, no, 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 no. You are not going to do this. The Game of Thrones is not going to do this right now to me.
Not a third week in a row.
Right.
So I think it was Katoria who said on Twitter, "Is like, I'm gonna need this not to happen, whatever the fuck this is." Like,
Right. Whatever this is needs to stop.
when they were like starting to tie her up, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, "Oh, come on now, enough." And again, I am not one of those that are opposed to the fact that there's rape in these stories because it happens as a part of the story. It's not like the show is necessarily adding a bunch of rape where there wasn't any in the books, in my opinion, though, with the exception of the Jamie Cersei thing. But yeah, I was like, I just need a break from this shit for 1 week. Please don't let this happen. And
Meanwhile, it's like I need a break from the brutality. Somebody cut that motherfucker's head off.
yes, right. I want to get back to the other types of violence. So
And that's part of what makes it so satisfying. What happens next, though, because you do get Jojen saying that, and then you get them about to do this, and then they get interrupted, and then shit gets real. And
yeah,
it gets
I
off.
don't know that I ever really thought that. I mean, honestly, I could have gone either way on whether or not they were actually going to rape her. I was surprised that she wasn't raped yet. Like, I'm just not sure what the fuck they were waiting for. No, I'm serious. Like, I can't remember. It might have been either Ball Moves Instacast or Natasha and Brendan, but they asked this question. I thought it was worth mentioning. Like, we know Craster's Keep is a few days at least from the wall. So why were they just tied up there in that hut? Like, like, I don't know what the fuck they were waiting for. Like, they just don't seem like the type that would be like, rationing out the rape. Like, they feel, it just seems to me like they were just pretty fucking awful. So, but yeah, so she remained untouched for as long as it took them to get there. Good for her. But in my notes, I have John arrives with his sexy ass. Good Lord. He looks good in that all black kicking ass. Like, with that hair, I was all about it. Sorry, Brendan on Unspoiled, he was like, I love the fact that they were like, Locke was like, yeah, let's stay away from that hut because we don't want the hounds giving off the fact that we're here. But, and that's about 30 feet away. But when we're about 50 feet away, feel free to yell to announce our arrival.
Charge.
I was like, yeah, good point. But yeah, so they're fighting. And Locke immediately goes for Bran. Now here's what I don't get. He comes in and he's like, he knows that Bran's a cripple. Like, everybody knows what happened to him, right? It's one of the things that, kicked off this big war and all this shit between the Lannisters and the Starks. So he knows that he knew enough to cut Bran in the leg or stab him in the leg and to test whether or not he was who he was. Because Bran didn't want to say who he was at first, even though he was like, oh yeah, I'm with your brother. I'll take you to him. Like, Jojen kind of looked at Bran like, we can't trust all the brothers in black. We know that, So, but why didn't he just stab him right then and there? Where was he taking him? Like, that was his mission, right? His mission was to make sure the Stark boys were dead.
To bring him back, though. Wasn't he supposed to bring him back?
No, I thought he was supposed to... Oh, I got to go back and watch that episode. I thought the whole point was to kill them because you don't want any Starks alive. And then... Ramsay was like, oh, and by the way, you may want to take care of the Snow too, because he's half Stark. So I have to go back and watch if he asked him to bring him back, which would seem like a really unnecessary thing to do. Like, why would you need these two
yeah, I mean, I guess outside of proof, you could have done that with,
Yeah, and I mean, he really didn't know that Jojen wasn't Rickon. Unless he knows for a fact, like, specifically, like, how old they are and all this stuff. Like, I just thought that was really weird. But, so that's what happens. He stabs him. He knows that it's Bran. He flings him over his shoulder. And then we see Bran and Jojen kind of exchange a look. And then Bran wargs into Hodor and makes him start, rocking to break the chains that he's tied up, attached to the wall.
Yes, this was so cool. I love this.
So he does that. He wargs into Hodor, and Hodor follows Locke, who has Bran slung over his shoulder, and he grabs him and he breaks Locke's neck.
Yes.
So I can't. John and I talked about this a little bit last night after the episode. So there's two things I wanted to talk about with this. One, I can't remember if I actually said it on the podcast, but I know I was thinking it, and I didn't have time to go back and listen to last week's. But I feel like, I know I said it to myself. I was wondering, we've never really seen Hodor as a badass or being particularly useful other than being strong enough to carry Bran around, right?
Right.
And actually, I don't know if I said this on the podcast because I think I've been rewatching the first 3 seasons, and I was watching the episode where they were in the tower and he was freaking out over the thunder and the wildlings were below and the warg could hear him and they were like, Hodor, stop Hodoring. And I remember thinking, God, Hodor is pretty fucking useless other than that because he's big and maybe he would be a deterrent for anybody who wants to come fuck with him when they're traveling. But if it's like more than one person and they have weapons, he's really not that useful because he doesn't fight because he's kind of simple, right?
He's typically like a gentle giant kind of thing.
So I really like the fact that in the one hand that he warged into him and we saw him do, because basically he didn't do anything that Hodor, in terms of escaping I should say, that Hodor couldn't have done. His strength is always there. His mind isn't even set up to try to use his strength to break those chains.
This really extended their surrogate relationship. Because so far it's just been where Hodor is carrying Bran around, and that's been all that he's been useful for. But now, like, the fact that we see now that Bran can not only do this temporarily and stop him from freaking out, but he can go into him and make him do things like this. Like, now it feels like their surrogate relationship is complete, where Hodor can be his body now because he doesn't really have the ability to do those things himself, so he can use Hodor.
I just totally thought of a really warped scene with like Whoopi Goldberg and Patrick Swayze.
Oh. Yeah, and remember how they
Hodor
when they
like
did
rubbing out a clay vase.
Yeah, and I love that in that. I'll never forget in that scene they did the circular camera thing where she turned into Patrick Swayze because nobody wanted to see Whoopi and Demi Moore kiss. Nobody.
Right.
Sorry. So okay, so that's interesting that you say that because the next part that I want to discuss is I feel bad for Hodor, and I have to say, so. In the show, I'm trying not to mix up show stuff with book stuff. So in the show, we saw him do it once. And the way they played it, just again, back in that tower to get him to quiet down, the way they played it then, it was kind of like we're supposed to believe Bran did it accidentally. And afterwards, Jojen says to him, okay, there are wildlings that can warg into all kinds of animals. And we see that with the one that Jon killed. But nobody can warg into another human. And so he was just kind of like, how did you do that? And the reason I say that they were trying to play it off like Bran did it by accident, he goes, I don't know. And I don't know if I ever really believed that. But in the books, I can't remember if the first time he did it was supposed to be accident, but it's something he does. And the books makes it really clear that Hodor doesn't like it. And that it's a kind of like, almost like being raped. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a moral kind of thing there where it's like he keeps doing
violation.
So I feel like when this scene, when he looked at the blood on his hands and he was upset, he didn't even have a moment to like process what he just did as, with Bran taking control of him, because Bran is like, Hodor, get his knife, cut me loose, go get Jojen and Mira. And it's like, holy fuck, kid. Like, I mean, I get that he felt like that was the only thing that could have been done. But it's like, I don't know. I feel bad.
Yeah, Hodor is definitely being used and exploited, and I feel like that's a surrogate relationship. I mean, it's even been that way even when he had him carrying him around. He's just like a mule.
I don't know if it's less of a surrogate, more of a parasitic relationship.
I think that's his role. That's what he's there solely to, making sure Bran stuck as far as possible.
I don't know.
I hope they continue though the idea that Hodor doesn't enjoy it. I hope they continue to explore that.
Me too.
I think so.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think if I remember correctly in the books, he's done it a few times at this point in the story, and it's never something that Hodor likes.
Right.
So then
I do want to say we kind of called Hodor killing Locke last week.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that too, and like I said, I didn't have time to go back and listen.
Yeah, because I think like when Hodor was being attacked by the guys at Craster's Keep, we were like, we hope he gets to smash somebody. And then when Locke was on his way there, we were like, oh, we hope Locke gets killed. And it's like we were like, oh, we hope that Hodor kills Locke, and then it'll kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
it's pretty cool that we did that.
And I like the fact that they did it. Like I said, I like the fact that this is a part of the story that I think is interesting, and whether I don't like the fact that he wargs on the Hodor, I think it's because Hodor doesn't like it and he's doing it without permission. You know what I mean? And Hodor really can't give permission because we see that he can't communicate. And again, he doesn't even know, like, it didn't even occur to him to use his strength to break free, to get them out of there, to hurt anybody, to help, whatever. You know, he just doesn't think that way. So I like the fact that it happened, but again, I am feeling kind of like, for once, I would like to see somebody who was wronged get the revenge. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody's ever gonna know that fucking asshole Locke, who tried to rape Brienne, who cut off Jaime's hand, met his, end beyond the wall. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, oh.
I feel like you're gonna get that with Arya, hopefully.
I don't fucking know. Arya's list, like, Polliver. That's the only one she's gotten so far. Everybody, she doesn't even...
Yeah, but she has a huge list, so hopefully she'll get one of them.
What I was going to say, have you noticed that she said Joffrey's name? She doesn't even know Joffrey's dead yet. I can't wait for her to find that shit out. She's going to be like, fuck, my list, people. Can I have...
She's going to snap me over and be like, God damn it.
Right. This is why I can't have nice things, because you fuckers won't let me kill the people I want to kill. Okay, so then Jojen stops Bran from calling out to Jon, which has got to be one of the most... This was worse than Arya almost going into the Red Wedding, in my opinion, because he could actually see his brother.
It was really hard. It was hard to watch.
Yeah.
It's kind of gut-wrenching because you just got to believe, like, these Starks are never going to be back together.
Well, okay, listen, I'm not giving book spoilers at all because, as you know, he's not even done writing the fucker. So I only know but so far. But I've got to tell you that part of the thing that anytime I ever go back and watch the first season, which I've done a few times now, sue me. But just last weekend, watching the episode The King's Road, where Ned says to Jon, where they're at that fork, and he's going to take the King's Road up to the wall, and Ned's going to go, to the south to go to King's Landing, and he goes, the next time we see each other, we'll talk about your mother, I promise. I'm like, that's never going to fucking happen.
Like you're never guaranteed a next time if you're Stark.
No, and think about it. When's the... Catelyn never saw her daughters again from when they left, because even when she went to King's Landing, she only saw Ned in the whorehouse, right? So they've never seen each other.
Everyone else assumes Arya's dead.
So Sansa hasn't seen anybody since her father's head was cut off. She hasn't seen anybody for years now. At least, like we said, at least 2 years. So it's just really fucking sad. And I think that this, for some reason, was more, to me, gut-wrenching, watching him see his brother feet away. And I love the fact that they are not like other families we've seen with bastards, where these siblings, not like their bitch mother was to Jon, but like all of them consider Jon their brother,
Yeah, and it really brought me back to the scene where, Jon's leaving and he's saying goodbye to Bran. And he goes in and he kisses him. That's when Catelyn's like, "Get the fuck out of here."
Yeah. Oh God.
But, he really loved. Yeah, it was really hard to watch.
It was.
This was a big deal, though. I feel, because Bran had to make the decision because they could have reunited. Like he could have. Yeah. He could have made that decision. He had to choose not to, because it's like Arya. Like, she didn't really have a choice, really,
right?
Because they were dead. So I mean, it was like she could have seen them, but they'd be dead.
What was she told Jaqen when he was like, "You could come with me to Bravos," and she was like, "No, I gotta find my mother, my brother, and my sister." Like Sansa was an afterthought. Like, yeah, that bitch. So that was really messed up. And there was part of me, like, I knew it wasn't going to happen because, again, none of this happens in the book. So there were a lot of book readers who was like, okay, this is pretty cool and we liked where this is going. But if they have Bran and Jon reunite, I'm going to be pissed because they don't reunite in the books. Like, he continues on his journey. So I knew that it wasn't going to happen, but there was a part of me that wanted it to happen just because I really have this sinking feeling like this is just going to be a tragic fucking tale of none of the people we care about ever really getting any revenge or redemption or seeing each other again. And fuck it, I just wanted it to happen, and it didn't. And I agree, it makes it more interesting that he could have not listened to Jojen. There was a part of me wanted to tell Jojen, shut the fuck up. Like, you don't know. Like, just shut up. But yeah. So
mind your business.
Yeah,
mind
right. Exactly. This thing, they ain't got shit to do with you. All right. This is Stark business. But then Jon goes inside and he fights Carl. They have their little one-off that we knew was going to happen. And just when you think, Carl pretty much has gotten the best of Jon, someone stabs Carl in the back, and it's one of Craster's daughter wives. And she does that thing that I fucking hate, where it's like, you have a knife and his back is to you. Stab that motherfucker in the neck, or at least keep stabbing him. She sticks it in his back and allows him to pull it out. And I'm like, oh, you really don't want to live. You don't. But
that gave us the opportunity to see that.
I know,
awesome...
John. I'm just saying, it's just, I get what you're saying. I know why they did it, but it's
she's a woman of anything that's pretty beaten down at this point. I think she probably surprised herself she was even able to do it.
I guess, but yeah. So she stabs him in the back. It gives him the opportunity. It gives Jon the opportunity to then stab Carl in the back of the head through the mouth,
through his everything.
It
was like
screamed.
3D. It was. Yeah, it was right through his head, through his mouth, at us.
There were two parts in this episode where I screamed out loud. This was one of them. When that happened, I was just, oh my God. And then they give you the profile shot, right, of him pulling it out. So we can see it coming out. Oh my God. Yeah, that was pretty fucking cool.
So long, Burn Gorman.
Yeah, he's gone. So they're counting up the bodies, and they tally that they've lost 5 brothers, including Locke. And they're like, when they look at his neck, because the way Hodor did it, I said he broke his neck, but he really pushed it really hard to one side. And you see like the neck, the bone sticking out. Oh, and they're like,
it was like smashing a melon.
Yeah, they were like, when they dump his body in the pile, they're like, what could have done that? It was like, yeah, like, but I love the fact that they're like, we're not going to investigate too much. Like, fuck it. But they're realizing.
Yeah, we won. We're tired.
Yeah, right. There are White Walkers out of this bitch. We need to hurry up. So then they're like, but wait, there's only 10. And Locke had said that there were 11. Where's Rast? And then we see Rast is running like a bitch, which I love because this is exactly what Sam did. Remember when they turned on Craster and Jorah Mormont, or Sir Mormont, and they were, and Sam rightfully was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And he went and got Gilly and ran. Rast was the one that was like, you better run, little piggy, because I'll be slitting your throat one night or whatever. He did the same fucking thing. Shit got real, and this motherfucker took off.
That's so funny because I totally forgot he was the one that gave Sam all that shit.
Yes, from the first season.
Great.
Yeah. So he's out there running, and he comes across the pen, and it's empty. And then they do that classic horror movie thing where he's spinning in 5 different circles, and you just know one of these times where he turns around. At first, I thought he was going to get gripped up by a White Walker, but when he came across the empty pen, and sure enough, this is the second time I screamed. Ghost came out of nowhere, and jumped on him, and so there's that. So there were some people, I can't remember where I read this or if I heard it in a podcast. People were confused, like, how did Ghost get out? You guys realize that Bran let him out, right?
Yeah, he says that, doesn't he?
Well, he tells Hodor, we gotta let Summer out, and then we gotta go. But we know that where Summer got trapped was right where Ghost was. So my assumption is that when they freed Summer, they freed Ghost as well.
Right.
Yeah, they were like, hey, Summer, wait a minute, is that Ghost?
Yeah, right? Like, oh, shit! But he knew that was Ghost from last week, because he said it. They were like, They have my brother's wolf. So, okay, so Ghost kills him, and then we see that there's a nice little reunion between Jon and Ghost. He was like, where in the seven hells? Like, I love it. Where the fuck have you been? And those things are getting so fucking big. And he was like, I
Yeah, they're
missed you.
huge.
Yeah. I don't think it was, I know Callie got tweet of the week, but I don't think I gave it to her for this particular tweet. Let me check really quickly, but I know she had a tweet about this, and somebody else then like favorited it and retweeted it, but no, it wasn't that. But she did have a tweet saying how that Jon Snow is so great. Like, one minute he's stabbing motherfuckers in the back of the head, and the next he's like loving up on his puppy. You know, like he's like, yeah, it was so sweet. So then,
he's a Renaissance man.
He really is. He really is. Then we see the wives, and rightfully so, they don't want to have anything to do with any men. Like, they're like, we're not, you know, John's like, you can come back to Castle Black, we can keep you safe, we can find you jobs. And they're like, you know, no offense, but fuck no. Like, we're going to take her. And you got to feel like the shit that Craster, and she says as much, right? Like, Craster beat us and worse. Your brothers beat us and worse. If it's all the same to you, we're going to stay, like, we're going to be out here. And he's like, you're going to stay here? You got to figure they have got to like not want to have anything to do with any more men if they're willing to take their chances out there with like White Walkers and like this horrible snowy existence. Like, I don't know. I just felt like, yeah, it has to be pretty bad that you're like, you know what? No, we're going to take our chances.
She's like, no, we're just going to pull up a large rock and crawl under it. Thank you very much.
Right. We're going to take our chances with the Walking Dead out here. Like, those guys, not so bad. So,
maybe there'll be another reunion when they meet their White Walker sons.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, Jesus. So the episode ends with she spits on the ground, one of his daughter wives. She's like, burn this shit down. We don't have any use for it. And that's what they do. They burn everything. And that's the end of the episode. So, yeah.
That was Jojen's vision of Carl's body burning.
Yep. And then and we know it's eventually going to snow and cover up his bones. So that's
winter will come sometime.
So we got not a lot of feedback. The show is almost over. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with some feedback and tweet of the week. Hey guys, did you know that you can support our website and our podcast just by shopping at Amazon? Go to projectfandom.com/Amazon, and we will receive a small portion of your total order. It doesn't cost you anything extra. We get that little bit from Amazon's profits. Pretty cool, huh? Super easy, and it's a great way to support us, help us keep the podcast going, and help us do all the fun, crazy contests that we come up with. So if you like the podcast, you like the website, consider using our affiliate link for your shopping needs. Again, that's projectfandom.com/Amazon. Now back to the show. Okay, so we're back. Once again, I want to thank everybody who live tweets with us on Sunday nights. It's Megan and I and some other, like last night for the first time, I think this season, Katoria joined us. She writes for the website. But we live tweet the episode and we use the hashtag PFGOT. So if you're on Twitter, give us a follow at Project Fandom or at ProFanMan, either one. And, you know, join the conversation, use the hashtag PFGOT, and we will, you know, talk about the episode together. It's a lot of fun. We laugh a lot. And if you get Tweet of the Week, your name is put into a drawing for a free Game of Thrones t-shirt from our Zazzle shop at the end of the season. So this week, the Tweet of the Week goes to Callie, and she said, "It doesn't get any better than Jon Snow. He might not know nothing, but he looks like everything." And I have got to agree, because I was...
Ain't that the truth?
Right? I was really, really liking Kit Harington last night. He's a good-looking dude regardless, but last night there's just something so sexy about him, all in black, wielding that sword, kicking ass. And, you know, he's got to be one of the smarter Starks. Like, he seems to be faring the best out of all of them so far. So yeah. So
whoever his mother is must be really smart.
Right. She don't get that shit from the Stark half. So then the feedback that we got on Facebook for this episode, a lot of people really liked this episode. That was clear. Willette said, "I'm having a hard time with Cersei just resigned to her fate, or does she have something planned? I think we covered that in the main part of the cast. I think we all agreed that she's up to something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she's being vulnerable, but for a reason.
Yeah. Amber says, well, all that anger, she's likely depressed. She'll rebound into her evil self soon. I hadn't considered that. Do we think that, we are of the mind that, again, her feelings are genuine. The things that she's saying are genuine. She's just sharing them for an ulterior motive. But could she not have an ulterior motive? Could she just be fucking depressed? She's drinking a lot. She just lost her son. Could she just be in shock?
I don't
It's
know.
possible.
Maybe it's the whole she's having symptoms, the menopause thing.
Well, I think it's possible she could be sincere, but I think because she's Cersei, we have to just assume she's not.
We have to err on the side of caution.
We have to reserve some judgments.
Yes. My husband said, doesn't everyone have that one crazy aunt? Katoria was like, I do not. And he goes, that you know of. Jesus. Yeah, I don't have an aunt that crazy. That's like Lysa is a whole nother level. Amber says, checkmate goes to Marjorie. Thank God we didn't see Lysa's breast. Her moaning was enough. I really like the Craster's Keep bit. That was a huge deviation from the book, and the book of files are going to come out of the woodworks with negativity, but it really worked better than the way it was written via text. I totally agree. She says, I also love that they are alluding to the fact that Bran may control the expensive CGI dragons that only show up for season openers and season finales. So that has been something that, this isn't book spoilers at all, because again, like she said, it's speculation. This is something that I've heard a lot of other people say, and when they write feedback to other podcasts, some other podcasters have speculated that people think that the whole point, that the reason Bran can warg is that he's going to warg into one of Daenerys' dragons. I don't know about that. I don't know why that would... I don't know. I really feel like they have kind of set up that the dragons are getting harder to control, right? And I guess you don't want dragons indiscriminately fucking shit up. Like, if you're going to come conquer a kingdom, you don't want them like setting on fire the crops that you're going to need people to grow. You know what I mean? Like,
if you're going to come direct.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I guess it would make sense that they would be controlled to some degree. But I just kind of imagine that Daenerys would be like riding on the back of like Drogon, the biggest one, and like saying, yeah, point left, fuck that shit up. Over there, no, let those people go. Like, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that there is something to that?
I think it would be cool, at the very least.
I would like it. I don't think I would like that the Bran can control a dragon.
You don't think you would like it?
I mean, I can get in my head right now, I can't see how that would play out necessarily at the moment, but I think that I want the dragons to just be the dragons. I want those to be Dany's dragons, and I don't want something as simple as Bran to like...
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you on that. I don't know if I want to see that happen. I think I want dragons to be dragons. Like,
I would prefer
how to train your dragons to fuck shit up.
Yes, I would prefer Bran to do some really cool tricks with people and like to really get into like like not just Hodor, but spread the war glove around.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting in multiple ways depending on how the plot like pans out. But I don't know. I want the dragons to be their own thing.
Yeah. John, were you going to say something?
I was just going to reiterate that I think it'd be cool. I just think it'd be cool if he could warg into a dragon, and then even if it's just like temporarily, like he realizes he can't do it, but then it would be cool just to see him do it. You just want him
at least to try.
Yeah.
Okay, so Claire says, I love the Craster's Keep scenes, and dang, Lysa makes Cersei look like a total sweetheart. So... yeah, Lysa is a special brand of crazy, and I don't know if her crazy, like, she seems like she's always been paranoid, but now, I don't know, I kind of feel like it's a little dirty to tell us now that she's the one that murdered her husband, because... I don't know. I guess it's all part of the act, because part of her not wanting to get involved was like, oh, no. I'm not going up against those Lannisters. They murdered my husband. They're crazy. We're going to stay here and blah, blah, blah. I guess that could be part of the act if she knew that the Lannisters had nothing to do with it, But I do feel like they've made it you seem she's definitely been jealous, right, of Catelyn or Kate. Yeah, Catelyn, her whole life.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is she crazy or is she just? I don't know. Is she crazy?
Yeah,
She's
fucking
fucked up.
crazy.
She's
What
fucked
show
up.
have you been watching 3 episodes in a row?
Well, I don't know. Like crazy
Yeah.
is like okay, like cause we've been saying Cersei is kind of crazy. I don't know that they have shown that Cersei is crazy. She has fucked up ideas on the way things should be, and she's a little ruthless or a lot ruthless.
I think she's completely brutal and ruthless, and but I don't think she's the same brand of crazy as Lysa is. I think
Okay.
Lysa is a little bit of a nut job.
Okay, that's what I was just. I'm not saying that
I
you're
think-
wrong. I was just curious. Like I don't know. Do we
Yeah.
think that she's just manipulative, or is she absolutely fucking crazy?
I think that Cersei is more like crazy like a fox. I think that Lysa's just crazy like a fucking crazy person.
And you want to know something? Shalita's feedback to Claire's comment was so Shalita says Cersei is crazy like a fox. Lysa is just crazy.
Nice.
And then
We're on the same page.
Amber jumps in. She goes, Lysa just makes Cersei look sane. Yeah. I will say there was something else I wanted to say about the Lysa thing and the John Aaron, but I just
Well, I mean, we can talk about this, as it goes on or whatever. But I mean, it really never occurred to me in the first season that the Lannisters weren't absolutely responsible for his death.
Okay, that's what I wanted to say. I'm glad you
The
said
way
that.
the way that
Yeah.
they discuss it, and the way that Jamie and Cersei's conversations go,
Mhm.
it never in a million years made it seem like they were fearful for anybody finding out anything,
Right.
but that they didn't do it.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to bring up. So there was an article that I read earlier today. It might actually be what I read that quote from. Yeah, it is. And the title of it was, "We finally got an answer to Game of Thrones' oldest mystery. Who killed John Aaron?" I'm like, fuck you. That wasn't a mystery. This show purposely, in the books, purposely set you up to think that the Lannisters killed John Aaron. So I don't think that was like, if anybody is saying that they have been watching this show this whole time thinking who the hell killed John Aaron, they're full of shit, because it was written for us to believe. The very first scene we ever saw Cersei and Jamie was them in the sept watching the Silent Sisters walk around John Aaron's body, and her saying, "Who do you think he told before he died?" As a matter of fact, remember I think John, you said it's the best episode of the first season when they had the jousting tournament to celebrate Ned being the Hand of the King, and they made this big deal to say that John Aaron's squire was made a knight after he died by the Lannisters, and they're thinking that they bribed him to poison him, and then the Mountain killed him in the joust because he works for the Lannisters to keep his mouth shut.
Right, and which only leads me to wonder what, first of all, like if they played it that way for another reason, or if Peter Baelish is lying to Lysa in some further regard to like making her think that she was responsible for that, to somehow pull her like, if you kill your husband, then we'll be together.
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's the thing.
So,
I feel like
it could go either way with him.
The show really. Now, I mean, there is because then the other thing is the other reason that you would think that, well, not the only reason you would think that the Lannisters, meaning Cersei and Jamie, would have a reason to kill him is because he found out that those kids weren't.
He was chasing after the bastards.
But whose word do we have to go on that? Because Lysa said when she was on the throne with her weird kid, and she said, "Isn't he handsome? Isn't he going to grow up to be blah, blah, blah?" She goes, even his father said it. His last words were, "The seed is strong." And so she was telling people that he said that in regards to his son. But what Ned took that to mean, when Ned was going through the book, seeing that all the Baratheons are dark of hair until you get to Robert's kids, was the seed is strong. And he went looking at all his other bastards, and they all had dark hair, including the baby in the whorehouse and Gendry, was, oh, Robert's kids would not be born with this blonde hair. So, but whose word do we have that John Aaron was actually investigating? Do you think it was Littlefinger who told Cersei, and you know what I mean? Like, he put a bug in Cersei's ear that John Aaron was asking these questions, and maybe he really wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think it's too far fetched to think that Littlefinger is behind everything because, as we've seen, like he could have been playing the Lannisters. He should have been playing Lysa. He could have
Mm.
said like, "I'm gonna go." He should have told the Lannisters that he was going to convince Lysa to kill her husband. So then they think they do think they are behind it because they told him to do that, and
Yeah,
then so he
yeah, I
did
see
that,
what you're saying.
and so she thinks that she was behind it, and they think they were behind it, and
Yeah.
really was Littlefinger behind the whole thing.
And one clarification I should say that we do know John Aaron was actually doing some of that stuff because when he went to where Gendry used to be, he used to make he was a, what do you call it? A smith. He was making the swords and stuff like that.
Right.
When he went and met him, when Ned went and met him and he talked to Gendry, whatever his name is, boss, he said Gendry admitted that John Aaron came and questioned him, remember? And he wanted to know about my mother and how I was doing and if I was happy doing what I'm doing. So John Aaron was going to ask those questions, but I think it's very likely that, like John said, that Littlefinger was making John do that stuff to make, to set it all up. You know what I mean? But
Who
yeah,
was the? Just a quick reminder. Who was the person that gave Ned the book? I forget.
I think that was Littlefinger.
Was
I,
it Littlefinger?
I think it was.
I thought.
I
Hmm.
because he wanted to know why John Aaron was going to that library, wherever that book was.
Uh huh.
And I feel like this is when he was going to leave. Remember, Ned was going to leave
For some
because
reason, I thought
Robert.
it was. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and check, but I thought that he was going to leave because Robert fired him for being the hand. And then he remember,
Hmm.
and the girls were getting all packed up and they were going to go. And every time I watch that episode, I'm like, you should have just left. And I feel like Littlefinger is the one who stopped him and said, we need to talk. I just want to show you one thing. And he showed him the book. And
Okay.
then Robert got hurt. He got gored by that boar, and then that whole thing. So yeah, but yeah, so I just feel like that whole was it a this oldest mystery is like bullshit. I think it was like clickbait, like they wanted people to click it. But I think if you've been watching the show, I don't think anybody had any reason to doubt that the Lannisters killed John Aaron. I will say, in a couple of differences from the book in terms of who killed who and what happened. You do find out in the books that Joffrey was the one who sent the guy to try to kill Bran in the bed. Um, and I don't know that why that makes sense in the books because then to me that would imply that he understood that Bran saw something he shouldn't see. Do you know what I mean? Like why would he feel the need to try to kill Bran? But in the books it's him, and in the books Cersei is the one that has all the bastards killed, not
Okay.
Joffrey. So I
All
really
right.
feel like the show has purposely tried to soften Cersei a little bit. I'm not saying that she's a good person, but they're trying to, I don't know, make her less cartoonish and over the top. And so, yeah, I think that's it. The only other feedback we got was Chad complaining that he got a cease and desist about illegally downloading.
Oh no! Don't do that, Chad.
Yeah, no, that's bad. Never do that. So, okay, so that's it for feedback. We don't have any new iTunes reviews. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I don't have any spoiler emails, but I do have some spoiler stuff that I want to talk about, just some differences and how that affects things moving forward in the spoiler section. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned after the music. Oh, and we did have one question on Twitter, which I don't want to forget because that would be really, really bad. It's usually Devin is the one who writes me with spoiler stuff, and he doesn't have any this week, but he did have a question, and his question was, I think we kind of answered this already, though. No, I guess we didn't. Do you guys think that people are whatever reason Cersei has for behaving the way she is, and whether it's genuine or not? Do you feel like Marjorie, Tywin, and Oberyn bought it and believe her?
No.
Marjorie and Oberyn definitely not. I don't know if Tywin puts much stock in anything that she says.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he feels like I don't care if she's fucking around or she's being, whatever, she's going to when we get there, like when it's like a fortnight after Tommen's wedding to Marjorie, I really feel like he thinks it doesn't matter what she thinks is going to happen. I'm going to make this happen either way. So
I think it's a case of they all feel like they're playing each other and they all know that each other's playing the other one. Like they all know they're all playing the game and they're just kind of dancing with each other.
And in their heads, they're each probably thinking, because I know it's not going to work. Like, I'm going to prevail. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter that they're lying to me, but because I know they're lying, they're not going to get whatever it is they're trying to get.
So I'm one step ahead of them no matter what.
Exactly. Everybody thinks they're one step ahead of everybody. So predictions for next week. It looks like trial possibly is going to start. Maybe, sort of. John?
Yeah.
You don't think the trial... I think as one of you said you don't think the trial is even going to happen.
Yeah, I said that. I mean, I said I'm not sure it'll happen. I mean, I still think it's a possibility that it won't happen, but it may. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So that's it, guys. Thank you for listening. I'm just going to remind you of all the places you can find us on the internet. So this podcast, we're currently only putting out one show a week now. Resurrection had its season finale last night. It was really good. I'm going to record the podcast for that either later tonight or tomorrow, so look for that. But after that, it's just Game of Thrones every week. If you've been enjoying Podcast Fandom, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes, and we will read it on the air. It really does help us find new listeners, and we haven't had a new review in weeks, so please, please, please take a moment to do so. Our summer schedule, in case you haven't heard, I've announced it on a few other podcasts, but our summer podcast special schedule is going to be HBO's The Leftovers, The Strain, which will be on FX this summer, and HBO's True Blood. So if you're thinking about checking out any of those shows and you like what we do, you're going to definitely want to stick around and listen this summer. We're also on Stitcher, and we could use some reviews there as well. I mentioned earlier...
Speaking of a special, though, we are coming up on our 100th podcast.
Yeah, we are. Sorry, I was going to wait and then talk about that next week.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm excited.
I know, because I'm not exactly sure exactly how it's going to work. I was just going to wait till we have more to tell people on that. But I mentioned earlier that you can find us on Twitter. Again, that's at Project Fandom and at ProFanMan. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Project Fandom. It's a great way to keep up with our content and contests. And finally, the website is projectfandom.com. We do next day recaps of some great TV shows. We cover movies, books, comics, anime. You can say it, Megan, if you want to.
You're never going to get me to say it.
Okay, fine. I will tell
I'll say it.
We cover comics, anime.
Eat the cake, anime.
And more. We're just being silly now. As you can tell, we're just close to the end of the show because it just kind of goes all off the rails.
Give a little slap happy.
Yeah, we don't care. Because we know we can hang up and go have dinner and do whatever we're going to do with our night. What else do we cover? Oh, and gaming, both tabletop and video games. So check us out at projectfandom.com. And if you want to send us feedback on anything, you can send it to projectfandom@gmail.com. And that's it. I'm not going to bring up anything else. We are done. We will see you next week when we'll be back to talk about Game of Thrones Season 4, Episode 6. Fuck, it's almost halfway over.
It is halfway over.
That's ridiculous. That's fucking ridiculous. This season goes faster than anything we watch, hands down.
Well, it's only 10 goddamn episodes,
True.
those bastards.
Damn it. That's like more than 2 months, and it doesn't feel like the show is on for 2 months. It feels like it's on for a month, and it rocks our world, and then it's gone for a year.
Now we're just so pissed.
I know. Now we're like, fuck this shit.
Fuck this show. We will not see you next week. How about that?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Take that.
Yeah, that's a lie. But yeah, we will be back next week to talk about Game of Thrones. If you want to talk spoilers with me, make sure you stick around after the music. Everybody else, we'll see you next week.
Surfboard.
I can't stand you. Hey guys, welcome to the spoiler section. Again, I'm recording this the next morning after we recorded the podcast because I was too tired to do it last night. So I'm going to record this and then I'm going to publish this bad boy. Uh, there wasn't any specific question that I got. So yeah. Um, I don't have a question to talk about. I'm sorry, I just drew a blank on something. I was thinking of something else. But anyway, I did want to ask you guys who have read the books. I kind of slipped up in the podcast and said that the trial looks like it's going to start next week. And I shouldn't have said that because we try not to discuss next week on scenes. Some people don't like seeing them, but they did show that it looks like the trial starts. And Jamie says something like, this isn't a trial, this is a farce. And then Tywin asks Tyrion, would you like to confess, or something like that? And Tyrion kind of leans forward and gives him this look, and then it cuts, and the look on his face is like, I would like to tell you to go fuck yourself. But so I'm trying to remember. I know that he ends up having combat, right? Like he has to have a champion against Cersei's champion, who is going to be the Mountain, and I know that Oberyn agrees to be Tyrion's champion, but I don't remember. Is that after being found guilty? Like, do they find him guilty and then, in terms of sentencing, he gets to have this trial, and if Oberyn wins, he doesn't die? I don't remember. Or is there a mistrial? I'm trying to remember why we have this fight happen. But I do know that the fact that this is beginning is signaling the beginning of the end for Oberyn, which makes me really, really sad. And in the main part of the cast, I didn't want to talk about the Sand Snakes, his 8 daughters, because, I don't even know if we're going to see them. I would imagine we would. I think we should, but yeah. What else is there? Sorry. I just yawned, and that's really rude, and I'm not editing it out because fuck it. What else was I going to say? There was something else that's different. Oh, so people were upset that Littlefinger and Sansa didn't stop at the fingers. I'm totally fine with that. Speed it up, I say. I don't care. If it's not something that's hugely important that, it's going to alter the course of the story overall, then, and they don't want to include it, that's fine with me. When do you guys think Lysa's going out the moon door? I love that John totally called it. Like, he's like, somebody's going out that moon door before the end of the season. I feel like next week is episode 6. God, I'm sorry, that's so rude. Next week is episode 6. I feel like we're probably not going to see Sansa next week. And then when we do come back, it will be, some time has passed and we know she's just living in hell. I think the battle at Castle Black is episode 9. So I can't imagine. I have a feeling like next week, all we're going to see is trial stuff, and the Bravos stuff, which, according to the scenes next week, it looks like Stannis goes to Bravos and he talks to the head of the bank, who's played by Mark Gatiss. In the books, did he go to Bravos, or did Davos write that letter and the bank person come to Dragonstone? Is that what it's called? Dragonstone? I can't remember. Oh, fuck. Anyway, I'm tired. I don't have a lot of spoiler stuff. I'm just speculating from the books on what might happen. So, in the nutshell, this is already 2 hours long. Yeah, next week, trial. Next week, Bravos. Really excited to see Bravos. And Moondor, Lysa, don't know when it's going to happen. Battle at Castle Black is supposed to be episode 9. How the fuck they're going to milk out 6, 7, and 8? What the fuck are those going to be about? What are they doing? What is taking Mant so long is what I want to know. And that's it. That's all I got. If you wanted to hear me say something different, you should have sent me some damn feedback and some emails to read. Okay, that's it. I will see you guys next week. I'm gonna go have some coffee.